Okay, everyone, welcome back to True Crime Thursday on Get Vokl. I'm your host, Lainey. I host the True Crime Fan Club podcast, Crimes of Passion, on the Spotify/Podcast Network, and a paranormal show called It's Haunted, What Now? So I know I have been on a little bit of a hiatus on Get Vokl, but but it just so happened that I was dealing with some fun depression and also migraines, and it was just a, good old time. So I'm happy to be back today in the studio, if you will, and back on the live stream. We are going to be talking about a case that has really fascinated me for a long time since I basically heard about it. Sorry, my throat's a little dry from today. I did do some recording with Parcast this afternoon, so I'm still a little sore here. So I hope everybody is ready and prepared and has their drink for today. I'm actually drinking some water with cherry blackberry Mio because I am so dehydrated. And so cheers to hydration. Anywho, okay. So I want to quickly talk about the opportunity you have to get some awesome TCFC goodies before we start the whole show and talk about Todd Mullis. Remember, if you are new to Get Vokl, you can for sure send me an email or any screenshot on social media showing that you've joined on Get Vokl and you've subscribed to the show. Then you'll get a fun sticker, a keychain, a postcard, tons of stuff that really are available to you. So feel free to let me know that you've joined us on Get Vokl. Okay, so let's get into the Mullis case, which has seriously been one of the more interesting cases that I have listened to and also had the opportunity to read about. Now, if you want really in-depth coverage of this topic, I recommend listening to the Court Junkie podcast. She did an incredible episode and great coverage over Todd Mullis, including everything that came of the trial, that type of stuff. And I'm sure there's going to be an update since he's been sentenced formally. All right, so this started in November of 2018 in rural Earlville, Iowa, on a hog and soybean farm. Yes, there are still farms out there. Amy and Todd Mullis had been married since 2004, and they had 3 children. Their 13-year-old son, Tristan, finds 39-year-old Amy Mullis unresponsive, slumped over with a corn rake in her back. 43-year-old Todd Mullis calls 911, pulls the rake out of her back, and drives her to the hospital. The ambulance meets them halfway, and the ambulance then takes her to the hospital, and she's pronounced dead once she arrives. Todd proclaims that it must have been an accident, and Amy was, recently recovering from a surgery. She had some dizzy spells, and he says that, this was an accident, so she must have fallen on the corn rake. Now, sorry. Now, their relationship had, from the surface, everything looked fine. But as you dig deeper, you see that there's a lot of strained relationships going on in this family, but especially between Todd and Amy. Todd's story, so we roll into the investigation, and Todd's story unravels when Amy's body shows 6 puncture wounds and the corn rake only has 4 prongs. So it's likely, and it seems likely, that what later will be said in trial is that 2 of those wounds were in an upward angle, and then 4 were in a downward angle. So it's like someone kind of poked and then slammed the rake down once Amy had fallen to the ground. Essentially, that means that she had been stabbed twice. And because of that, it was deemed that Amy's death was no longer an accident, but it was now a homicide. And she also had injuries to her face, hands, and her knees, which kind of show that she struggled or had tried to defend herself. Now, Todd tells police that Amy like we said in the beginning, was recovering from surgery, and this was her first full day back on the farm. She was complaining about dizzy spells, and Todd told her, you know what? Don't worry about doing this work, this, really hard labor. Me and Tristan can handle it. How about you go and get the pet carrier to help get the kittens that we have on the farm, in there, and then you can go inside and rest up. So he sees her go off and do that, and then he goes inside to get some water, and he looks out and he doesn't see a pet carrier like he had sent Amy to get, and he's a little confused. So he sends his oldest son to check on the mother, and when he walks in to where Amy is supposed to be, he finds her on the ground bleeding. Sorry, my throat. Let me water break. Hold on. And if you're joining us on Facebook, thank you. Welcome. Let's see. Okay. So when he finally gets the opportunity to talk to police, or rather the opportunity is not really an opportunity. The police want to question him about what happened. And they ask, were there any problems in your marriage? Typical stuff to kind of help eliminate the spouse. And he tells police, you know what? No, there were no problems in our marriage, which is a lie, as we come to find out. As police conduct their investigation, they find out that they hadn't even slept in the same bed for 5 months. And they'd been having problems since 2013 when Todd found out that Amy was cheating on him. Police found out Amy was having an affair with a man who worked closely on the farm. Todd, Amy told him that if Todd found out about the affair, that he would kill her. Amy's last text message was to a friend, and it said, quote, "Still very tense around here, just not sure of anything anymore." Friends called Amy POT, short for prisoner of Todd. And because of all of this, all of the stories that they were hearing, friends who were starting to accuse Amy's friends that were starting to accuse Tom of being the person who had murdered her, everything kind of seemed shaky with his story. And even the 911 call would come into question later. And I'll play some of that for you so that you can kind of tell me what you hear in that. So we move into the trial, and we see that the trial ends up being moved from Delaware to Dubuque County because the Mullises are kind of well known in the Delaware County area, so they need to move it because they have such close ties to that community. In Iowa, first-degree murder is an automatic life without possibility of parole sentence. Now, as they go through the trial, they try to establish a motive, right? That's what the prosecutor is trying to say. This is the whole reason why Todd killed Amy. Now, so what the prosecutors say that Todd's motive was to keep Amy from getting a $2 million trust and half the farm if they got a divorce. He once told Eileen Fuller, his wife's stepmother, that he wasn't going to lose his farm over this, referring to the affair. And it was also, Amy's death was also payback for cheating on him. Prosecution, I mentioned this earlier, but the prosecution plays a 911 call where Todd allegedly says, "Go to hell, you cheating whore." Fun. Oh my. Sorry. I live on a corner house, so it is what it is. So Todd allegedly says, "Go to hell, you cheating whore." And the defense says that, you know what, he's so out of breath from doing these chest compressions that he's actually saying she is cold. So I want to play the audio for you so that you get an opportunity to hear it. And you can let me know what you hear. So I'm going to go ahead and play the tape from the trial. Here we go.
John, did you just hear that whisper at the end of that?
Yes.
And what did you whisper?
Oops, sorry.
I couldn't hear it.
Okay, I'm gonna play it again. Todd, do you whisper cheating whore right there?
No.
So you don't remember?
So if you can find the audio, that's what was just playing, audio from YouTube. You can find the audio on YouTube to listen to the 911 call. And to me, it does sound, because, maybe I'm not listening with an unbiased ear, because I had previously heard the 911 call before and I was like, yeah, I could hear cheating whore. But then also on the Court Junkie podcast, the audio is a lot more clear. And so to me, you hear that. But if I'm listening with a different ear, I can also hear that she's cold. So they bring in the medical expert who did the autopsy on Amy's body. That medical expert was Dr. Kelly Cruz. And what she testified to was that there were injuries on Amy's back, and those injuries led her to believe that it was homicide and not an accidental death. So the cause of death, from what she said, was sharp force injuries to the torso. Amy's best friend, Patricia Christopherson, also testified that she wasn't happy in her marriage and that she hadn't been happy in many years, and also said that Todd didn't trust Amy. Now, Amy's brother, Jeff Fuller, also testified. These are all for the prosecution, obviously. And he said that Amy had told him in August of 2018 that as soon as all the crops were out of the field, she was going to leave and file for divorce. Now, he had furniture stored in preparation for his sister and her children for leaving Todd. So he had, literally like a whole house full of furniture ready for her for when she moved out, so that she had something to put in her new apartment or her new house, whatever she was planning on doing. He also had the intention, and he did share this with the court during his testimony, that he also had the intention of planning to help his sister find, a new home and move into it. So there were active plans on Amy's side that she was planning on leaving and divorcing Todd, that Todd obviously was not privy to, based off of the testimony of, her brother and her best friend, that there wasn't really a trusting relationship there, and that Todd kept, constant monitor over her to see what she was doing, things like that. So it's obvious that Amy was making plans to leave the relationship and, divorce him. So Josh Frazier was the man that Amy had an affair with, and he also testified. He said that, he started working on the farm and they had texted a lot, and then it evolved into a sexual relationship. And that relationship began in in the summer of 2018. Todd eventually found out and confronted Josh and Josh's wife about the affair. Now, Josh and his wife both were like, nope, sorry, that's not happening. And Todd called them, he went literally to their house and were like, hey, Todd, Josh, are you banging my wife? And he was like, no, of course not. Because who's going to say yes when you're being confronted like that? So he said, no, of course not. The wife even asked him. He was like, no, he didn't admit to the affair. So Todd called them. So he called Josh and his wife 2 days later and apologized to them, but said, you know what, Josh, can you stop texting Amy? So Josh complied with his wishes and stopped, but he didn't stop completely, because after that confrontation, Amy and Josh began communicating via email. And she told him in communication that she felt like a slave or a hostage around the farm. He also said that one time she did say that if he ever found out about the affair, she would disappear. Now, I mentioned earlier, when the investigation into Amy's death was happening, how the events of that day played out. And that her son at the time, her son, who was 14, I believe, at the time, had, or no, he wasn't 14. I forgot how old he was. Sorry. Her son had testified. He was 14 when he testified on the stand, but he had been the one who had found his mother because his dad had sent him out and said, "Hey, go see what's going on." So he also testified, which was really emotional to hear. He testified about finding the body of his mother, and he had to admit that his father was out of sight longer than he initially said in his deposition. So it was clear that he had either been coached previous to help his father with an alibi, or that he was trying to protect his father. And then I think as the time went on and the case was coming to trial, he may have, been coaxed into sharing what the actual truth was of what he remembered instead of what he was being told he remembered, if that makes sense. Um, so overall, the prosecution theory was, he was going to get rid of Amy so he didn't have to pay her any money and that she didn't get any part of his family's farm. And also just out of revenge and spite for cheating on him and, having the audacity to do that. But the defense argued that it was just someone else who killed Amy and that it wasn't Todd because there was no forensic evidence from what they said. Excuse me. So, in a surprising move, which I thought was surprising because it's such a gamble and a risk in a defendant to take, or for a defendant to take the stand in their own defense. And the prosecutor really jumped on this opportunity to question him to get answers to the questions they had. So he had to answer questions about his Google searches, which included killing unfaithful women, what happened to cheating spouses in historic Aztec tribes, was killing more accepted centuries ago. He also searched where a person's internal organs are located, and these searches took place 4 days before Amy died. And it was said that certain internet searches, he said that certain internet searches were related to killing because he was engaging in hunter safety training. He testified that he was convinced that Amy and Josh weren't having an affair. And the jury after that, so defense closes, whatever. And after that, the jury deliberates. So the first day, they cannot come to a decision and they go in for the second day. So by the second day, they finally reach a verdict and he is officially found guilty on September 23rd, 2019. So, like I mentioned earlier, first-degree murder is an automatic life in prison without the possibility of parole sentence. So we knew that that was the sentence he was going to get. But due to the COVID-19 outbreak and / pandemic, sentencing was delayed 4 times because not only did we have COVID to worry about, but he also had lawyer changes. So he immediately asks for a new trial after all of this. And he argues that his lawyer didn't tell him that he didn't have to testify. And he said that his lawyer argued misconduct he also argued misconduct from Attorney General Maureen Hughes when she played the 911 call and alleged that Todd said, "Go to hell, cheating whore." He claims that call and the statement that she made in questioning what he said tainted the jury. Amy was, as we know, or what we find out about her, is that Amy was a registered nurse. She loved hunting, fishing, and being outdoors. So working on the farm kind of made sense. But she did have to quit her job as an RN in order to help out on the farm to help keep it going because the work was just a lot. From the testimony and the stories that you hear about Amy, she was truly and greatly loved by her family. And when the guilty verdict came, and you can watch the sentencing and the verdict on YouTube, you can audibly hear them crying and there's some of them are sobbing. And it was a really emotional day for them when the verdict was read. The Delaware County prosecuting attorney, John Burnell, knew the Mullis family personally, and he was actually super happy to get Amy justice for her murder, because he, wanted to ensure that he did the best he could for her and helping her um, get justice, really. So that is the story of, that's the story of Todd Mullis and the murder of his wife, Amy Mullis. So there are some people who are out there now that he's received his sentence officially, who were saying that, sure, he probably did kill his wife, but he didn't get a fair trial, because honestly, his his defense attorney, because I watched the trial from the beginning to the end. I like to do that. It's very strange. But his defense attorney didn't really do anything in terms of objections. So there are some people who feel he didn't get a fair trial because his attorney was incompetent in some areas and didn't do things that you would expect a defense attorney to do. And if what he's saying about, needing to testify or not having to testify on his own behalf, obviously, for us in the true crime world, that is a surprise whenever a defendant gets on the stand and tries to defend themselves, because it's a crapshoot. Either the jury's going to believe you 100%, or they're going to think you're full of crap. And the way that, my gosh, squirt, no. The way that Todd acted on the stand in terms of his demeanor, he's very flat. Like, will you let him out? He just wants to go out. Thank you. Thank you. He's a very flat, monotonous speaker. And he was downplaying a lot of his emotions to the jury, especially about the affair. When you watch him, do his testimony, he's just like sitting on the stand, kind of slumped over, and it's like, yeah, no, or no, I don't feel this, or no, just very lax in the face. And there's no perfect, defendant who's going to be able to get on the stand and has the playbook for how to convince the jury that they didn't do this. If there was such a playbook, Todd burned it and never read it because I think he was a terrible witness. He did not do a good job. And he had to explain searches that were very questionable. And the timing of those searches was also very odd and coincidental. So I do think that his lawyer did him a disservice if she didn't counsel him about how it would look, and possibly, coach him or work with him on the questions that he could expect. Because sometimes it did seem like he wasn't expecting the question, and so he didn't have a canned response to it. And then other times it seemed like he knew this was going to come up, so he had practiced what he was going to say. So, I don't ever think it's, for the true crime person in me, it's great when somebody gets on the stand as a defendant and, has to testify, because you get to hear, from the horse's mouth. But from the logical, reasonable person, it does not make any sense to get on the stand as a defendant, especially in a murder case, when there's all of this, animosity between the spouses. Because Amy wasn't innocent in this. It does not mean she deserved to die at all or be murdered at all. But she wasn't innocent in the fact that she did, have an affair. She could have left. She was scared to for some reason, and she obviously felt threatened. And she had to do it in a way that, she had to sneak around, like working with her brother under the cover of night, essentially. Sorry, one more water break. Also, ginormous. But, you know, obviously working with her brother, confiding in her best friend about the things she was doing. And there was also rumors going around town about Amy's behavior and about her affairs. And it's a small town, so it's what you expect. Like in a city, nobody would know. Nobody would probably care that so-and-so was having an affair. They'd be like, cool, everybody does that, I guess, and not make a big deal about it. But in smaller towns, you know, everybody knows everybody's business. Everybody's into it. And so my mom used to say something about like, don't let your name come home before you do. And that's kind of what happened with Amy, is that there were people talking behind her back to her best friend and coworkers and other people. And that circled around back to Todd, which of course made him paranoid, embarrassed him. He was jealous and upset and hurt. And Amy's friends did try to counsel her and say like, hey, you know, like put a cork in it. That's done. Like, stop having an affair. Just divorce him and be done with it. But for whatever reason, like I said, you know, she confided in her brother and she confided in her best friend that she, and even in the person she was having an affair with, that Todd kind of ruled with an iron fist and that he was overbearing and that he kept control over her. So I can understand from that perspective how the rational decision of being like, hey, I'm just going to go, flies out the window, because you're just like, well, you know, I'm too scared to do anything. And she also had children to worry about and what was going to happen to them. So, and you can see the way that it's affected at least Tristan, because he's the one who got on the stand and was on the farm that time. So you can see how it affected him. And then imagine, you know, coming to the slow realization that your dad is the one who likely murdered your mom. So not only have you lost your mother, but you've also lost your father. So you've essentially lost two family members, and it's just crazy. There were also not rumors, but there were also issues between Amy and Todd's mother. So there was a lot of discord in the Mullis family, and it wasn't just between Todd and Amy. It was between Todd and somebody else, and Amy and somebody else. And there was a lot going on in that family. So it did not have to escalate to Amy's death, but it did. And the prosecutor, you know, and the prosecuting attorney is just really grateful that they were able to get justice for Amy. And so I'm really, I'm glad that they were able to do that, because to me, it's kind of obvious that, that he did kill, you know, his wife and stuff. So it's not such a far reach for me to think like, oh, hey, he probably killed his wife, right? So it's things like that I think about. Miss AZ joined us. Love it. So yeah, so that's the story of Todd Mullis. I'm going to click on my live stream to make sure I don't have any sound again. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's the story of Todd Mullis. So if you have any questions or you want to share your thoughts with me, please do so. I will go into another story real quick, because it's something I've been following on TikTok, and it's this Stand with Sophie trend that's going on. And it's happening here in Texas, and actually in Frisco, and I think Seguin simultaneously. I believe the mother lives in Frisco and the father lives in Seguin, or some S town in Texas. But there was a TikTok video that went viral, and the hashtag on that TikTok video was Stand with Sophie. And basically what it showed was this little 6-year-old girl who was being transferred over to her grandmother's care during a custody exchange, basically. And her dad and her stepmom were recording the exchange in the car as Sophie was having a meltdown, and she was basically accusing her mother's boyfriend of sexually assaulting her. And, you know, she was, if you find the video, you can find it literally anywhere. I won't play it because it's a little distressing to hear. It's really sad to hear. But she's crying and saying, you know, why don't you believe me? I don't want to go. You know, there was this whole movement started on TikTok because of this one video where this little girl is basically saying, you know, she had been abused, and that her grandma was basically saying like she made it up, and nobody on her maternal side was really believing what she was saying. And there were a lot of conspiracies going on that the mother was complicit and knew about these things. And then the other side is that this was, you know, this has been a hoax and this is part of QAnon and all that stuff. But if we're to believe what is true, in that Sophie had been, you know, abused by her mother's boyfriend, and that they also did drugs around, because it's Sophie and her two little brothers. But Sophie seems to be the main target. I think the little boys are also abused in some way, but not sexually. Like, you know, it's not a competition, but my gosh. So anyway, there been live TikToks on covering the case through the Collin County court system, because that's where Frisco is located, in Collin County. And there would be updates periodically shown. And there was some belief that the mother's attorney and the judge were friends. So a lot of the decisions that were coming down in favor of the mother seemed suspicious. Even though Sophie had complained of pain in her privates and things like that. And when she had gone to the hospital, she had a yeast infection, again, according to TikTok and random threads. So I don't know truly how true the story is, but it seems to be valid and making the rounds, as there are a lot of accounts providing updates. Collin County has it on their website. So it's obviously something that is happening, but when these child custody cases come up, you're never like 100% sure on the accusations that are being made from either side. So hopefully that gets resolved. But she had complained of pain in her privates. She had gone to the hospital, and she was examined. She did have a yeast infection. And she also, or somebody, one of the investigators at the hospital, who I guess communicates with kids who have possibly been victims, is that there was likely sexual abuse that happened to Sophie. So this kind of blew up, and she was returned to the care of her mother. But during a court hearing, the defense attorney, or the attorney for the father, had made some compelling arguments that, you know, she had recently been diagnosed with this yeast infection. There was likely sexual abuse going on. Sophie has said that, you know, it's been multiple men that have assaulted her, or in one way or the other, sexual or touching, and that she has told her mother, and her mother's been complicit in this, and, you know, they've seen a change. And so the judge ordered at the time, this was right before Labor Day, the judge ordered at the time that she and the other two kids be given like 30-minute Zoom sessions with their father every single day to make sure that they're safe and they're okay. And then one of the Zooms that was recorded by, I believe, either the father or the stepmother, showed Sophie kind of signaling to her dad. Her dad had written a note saying, like, are there any guys there, or have there been any men? Because the rule that the judge said in the trial, or sorry, in the hearing before the Zoom hearing, if you will, one of the stipulations was that Sophie was not to be around any male who was not a family member. So Jake is the mom's boyfriend's name, so he doesn't count, and any friends, etc. Like across the board, she's not to be in contact with any male, you know, that the mother may know or that the father may know. So that was, you know, supposed to be a safeguard in response to the allegations of sexual abuse. So during the Zoom call, her father writes down, like, are there any guys there? Are there any men? And Sophie says, you know, she nods her head, and he's like, are you safe? And she kind of quickly kind of tenses up because I guess her mom is in there and listening. And so she's like, she says like a safe word, which is like mockingbird or something. There's like, yeah, I've seen a lot of birds and I really like the mockingbird or something like that. Um, when it's safe to kind of have the discussion again. And so she signals to her dad with her hand that there have been 4 guys at the house and stuff. And so there's another emergency order put through because of the latest accusations, and the Zoom calls and the mom kind of rushing them off the phone. It's really strange. The whole thing is really strange. I truly haven't done a deep dive. It's really based off of the videos that I've seen, and it's a really disturbing case for me, especially because it's so close, you know. But anyways, the father had been given temporary emergency custody of Sophie and the 2 boys, and they are with him now until the hearing in November. And really what his attorney is wanting is there to be a psychologist involved, who has experience in this so that they can, you know, meet with the kids individually and have these conversations. Now it seems like the dad is more willing to do that and to engage with those professionals than the mom is. If you look at some of the body cam footage that they have of the Frisco police going to the mom's house to do a wellness check on the children. She's frustrated, obviously, that the police are there, and she kind of has like an attitude about it. And I get it. Like, trust me, I've seen a lot of fun custody things happen with my own family members. So I get it. It's a frustrating thing, especially, you know, when there are arbitrary calls to the police to do wellness checks on kids who are perfectly fine, but it's just, you know, kind of between the parents and things are bitter. But her demeanor in this is like, oh, did he say this again? Or like, she doesn't take any responsibility for anything in that. And she's like, I think this is one of the first times that Sophie had been, the kids had tested positive for drugs, like illegal substances, not like Tylenol, you guys, but like drugs. And so the mom plays it off like, oh yeah, like I heard about that. And, you know, that happened with him. That didn't happen with me. And it's just like, I'd just be pissed that my kids, you know, like I'd be shocked. And instead she was like, yeah, I know. It's crazy, right? Like, I'm so pissed. Well, oh, it's me. Like, I'd be so pissed that my kids had tested positive for anything. So it is her demeanor is a little strange. And again, you know, with what we do, we know that there's no appropriate way to handle situations that are stressful or anything like that. We know that there is, you know, many different ways, but the whole thing has been very strange. And like I said, there are some people who are calling this legitimate, who are saying, you know, like, we have to stand with Sophie, we need to save her from her mother, all this type of things. And then there are also people, I think even the Frisco PD and the Collin County Children's Advocacy Center put out statements that basically said, like, this is, you know, the kids are safe, they're fine. This was before the emergency custody hearing and the grant of the emergency custody to the father. But they both put out and said, you know, like, this is part of the QAnon thing where it's save our children. I don't really know too much about that because I don't really keep up with conspiracy theories or anything else, but like that anyways. But they say it's part of QAnon where the save the children hashtag is coming from. And so it's people trying to push some type of agenda. And I mean, if that's true, that's obviously terrible. And that sucks because why? Why would anybody do that? But, you know, there are also people who don't believe Sandy Hook happened and that, you know, 9/11 was an inside job. So I guess there's something out there for everybody. But that is essentially the stand with Sophie. So as it stands right now, like I said, you can go on YouTube to watch the videos. I'm sure there are compilations out there that have all of the videos put together. If you have the TikTok app, you can also search for the hashtag Stand with Sophie to see all of the updates and really kind of find out what the story is, because truly, to me, it's confusing because there's so many theories like back and forth of what's happening, and what's what. And honestly, we won't really know until we get resolution through the actual court case. And hopefully that involves experts like psychologists and, children advocacy people, because to me, all this back and forth, isn't healthy for the kids, right? To have um, their business out there like that. And the father said the reason that he had done it is because he had spent his life savings on an attorney to help get his kids back. And that the reason that the mother had been granted custody is because she had hired an attorney and he didn't. So he was pro se. And what you typically find anyway, in my experience, has been that if you don't have, my niece, if you don't have, um, if you don't have an attorney, you essentially the judge doesn't really pay attention to you in the sense the same way they do an attorney. I've seen that firsthand for myself, especially here in Collin County. I don't know how it is anywhere else because I haven't gone to any other cases or any other courthouses. But here, that's kind of my perspective on it. I'm not saying that's the truth for everybody, but in the few courtrooms I've been in where I've seen this happen, that's kind of the vibe I get. So yeah, I just thought it's a really interesting case, and hopefully there's some positive resolution, because truly at the end of the day, what matters is that the kids are all healthy and safe. And like I said, the dad did this because he was trying to bring attention to his case to help his children, from what he says, and that he was trying to raise funds to hire an attorney, which he successfully did, and fight for his children, not just Sophie, but the other two children too, who are exposed to whatever's happening in the house, if there's anything happening in the house. I can't say one way or the other, because the Stand with Sophie narrative is one-sided. So I can't definitively say oh yes, this is what happened. I'd rather wait until the court comes back with the experts and whatever. Hopefully they engage experts. Because if they don't, that just doesn't make sense to me. It would make more sense to have kind of definitive proof that this woman, if she is, allowing her daughter to be sexually abused and is aware of it and is helping facilitate it, she should be charged with a crime and jailed. And so should every other person who she's allowed to harm her child. But B, she should never, have any custody or visitation with her children for the harm that she's done. And I would think, I don't know. A lot of people are comparing this to the Gabriel Fernandez case, and I still have not watched that on Netflix. I don't plan to, unless I'm in a really weird place, because I hear so many bad things about the Netflix, and bad, and I mean sad things about it. So I really don't want to expose myself to that right now. But yeah, if it is true, I would think that, the justice system would try to help these children, and CPS would be involved and all this stuff. But maybe that's just too much of wishful thinking. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, but I have done a lot of research for the show. You know how many people hate that we say that? We have to say it so you don't think we're psychologists, you guys. But yeah, if you, maybe that's just, wishful thinking that they're acting in the best interest of the kids or whatever. I don't know, honestly. But I'm curious to see what you guys think about it, just kind of from what you've heard from me. And if you are familiar with the whole Stand with Sophie thing, what your perspective on it is, because I am really interested to see how this turns out. Like I said, I hope it's a positive outcome for the kids. I don't really care about the parents, other than that either one of them are held accountable, because if either one of them is telling lies, and either coaching their kid to say this, or this is actually happening to their child, then they for sure deserve to have some type of punishment associated with that. Because I would hate to think that this was a lie and that she was being coached to say these things, because the damage that it could do to her, especially because she's in such a like fragile age. She's 6 years old, I believe, or maybe a little bit older. But either way, she's really young, and this will have an impact on her for the rest of her life. One way or the other. The terrible thing of being sexually abused is not something that people can easily get over with counseling and just sucking it up, and also being treated as a pawn in a custody battle is also not something, because your kids are going to want to believe that you'll put them above anything else, other than bitterness between each party. So yeah, it's a sad whole thing. So if you haven't checked it out, I would recommend it. It's a really insane thing that just spawned on TikTok and has made, the headlines on the national news and has caused Frisco PD to issue a statement about it. So I don't know. And there are people who saying the Frisco PD is lying because they, are listening to CPS, who says they're safe, but then now they're in the custody of their father for certain things. So it's just like, what's happening? So yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys think about that, because it is, to me, really interesting. And I think that's all the true crime cases in terms of what I wanted to talk about today. I know I'm behind, just an FYI, I know I'm behind on mailing certain things out. Again, thanks depression. And then also I've been waiting on some merch to get in. So I made sure that it was replenished and ready to go. And that is the case now. So I will be sending some things out. I have my niece here. My other niece who was helping me just recently had a baby. So I am a great aunt to a little girl named Jada. And she was helping me out on the paranormal show and doing some things for TCFC too. Just kind of like some admin things. But now that she's a new mom, she's not going to have time for that. So my youngest niece, who we call JoJo, is going to be helping out with the mailing of things on the TCFC side, and then gathering the stories for the paranormal show that I have. So it'll be a great resource for me. We also recently, if you are friends with me on Facebook, we also recently got a new puppy, and his sweet little name is Tater. He is a half corgi and half cattle dog. And everybody notices his paws first. So I'm going to try and find a cute little picture so everybody can see what he looks like, because he's 3 months old. He was born in June, and he is a freaking ball of energy. He's so cute. Oh, my niece. Yeah. So this is Tater, if you can see him. And like I said, you can add me on Facebook. Just look for Lainey Hobbs. I have a public profile on Facebook, so you can add me if you'd like to, and you'll see little updates of my puppy, Tater, and all my other dogs, Squirt and Bubba too. So Tater is quickly being acclimated into the family, and he is just the sweetest little boy in the whole entire world. He is a menace to society. I do not recommend puppies. Just kidding. They're great. But yeah, this whole thing, the story, everything, crazy sauce to me. So that's really what's been going on. We also covered in the latest episode of TCFC, Chris Dankovich, and that really touches on kind of how the last few episodes have. That kind of touches on the mental health of people when they commit these crimes. There was accusations against Chris's mother. You should listen to the episode because I'm kind of going to go into it a little bit. But there were accusations that Chris's mother was abusive and that she could be really crass towards Chris, and that what he did and the way that his mental illness kind of showed itself and exhibited itself was in this way. And that's why he committed murder and murdered his mom. Now, he was really young when he committed the murder. And, after looking at the case and everything, I do think that he should be released. He actually probably should have gone to a mental health facility to receive treatment because he truly needed it, based off of the information that we had about the diagnoses that he had. So to me, psychiatry would have really, psychiatry, oh my gosh, I can't speak today. Going to a psychiatric hospital would have likely helped him. He's still in prison to this day. And there are actually people, I was just talking to Nina from Already Gone about this. And if you don't know, Already Gone is a wonderful podcast. It covers crimes in Michigan and elsewhere. But she was saying that, she's corresponded with Chris on several occasions and that it doesn't make sense that he is behind bars and that there's somebody who had beheaded somebody at whatever age and had is going to be paroled soon. I think the person was 15. No. Wait, where? Are you going to go to do that? Are you going to be anywhere else? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I love you. Sorry. Doing aunt duties with an 18-year-old is the most fun thing in the whole entire world. Anywho, so yeah, it's just a weird thing. I don't know. Yeah, that kid, the 15-year-old kid who beheaded somebody is being released out on parole. And I guess you can't compare crimes or anything like that, but to me, beheading somebody is a little bit, more of a deeper crime, I would say, because of the amount of overkill that has happened. But like I said, you can't really compare, but you have these connotations with certain crimes that are happening. So yeah, that's kind of it. So I mean, I'm curious to hear everybody's thoughts. I've gotten a lot of great feedback on Instagram about other people's feelings. They're kind of in the same camp as I am, but I'm definitely open to hearing everybody else's, feedback and theories on Chris Stankovich and what they hear. The next episode that comes out on Monday is probably one of my favorite episodes. I'm not going to give it away because I never do. But it is one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far. It was written by Jessica, who also writes for Fetal Abduction Podcast, which is a great podcast as well. So yeah, I can't wait to share it with you guys. It's going to be great. If you're on Patreon, we do have another TCFC Prime coming out. We're a little bit behind, I think a month or so behind, but we are going to be pushing those out so everybody has it. And then I think that's it for me, you guys. It was fun to be back. I'm so sorry. I have friends in the hospital right now on the podcasting side. I think Steven from Trace Evidence just got out of the hospital. Don't know why he was there, but he did mention on Twitter that he was in the ER. Erica Kelly just recently recovered from surgery, and she's back in the hospital. So there's just a lot going on in 2020 alone, but also this month. A lot of our friends are needing your good vibes and thoughts, so just keep them in mind. And a great way to support your creators, if you can't do so monetarily, a great way to support your creators is to join them on Get Vokl on Thursday. So thank you, friends. And also leaving them positive I have like ADD. Also leaving them positive reviews on any of the podcast platforms you have, not just on Apple Podcasts, but there are other areas on Facebook, and you can share the stories on Instagram, that type of thing. You can always share a positive review of the podcast, and make sure you share it with your friends and family who also like true crime or whatever else you listen to. But that is going to be it for me. I do appreciate you joining me. Remember, if you are new to Get Vokl, all you have to do is send me a screenshot of you subscribe to the show and this channel, and I will send you a goodie bag of things, which will include probably a sticker, postcard, keychain, button, and then maybe some random friend things that I have that other podcasters have sent to me over the years. I really do appreciate it, and you guys are awesome. I will be back next week, and if you have a topic in mind that you'd like me to cover, just holler at me, let me know, and I will be there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, stop the broadcast. I hope everybody has a great and wonderful night.